I'm gonna get some firewood pins. So, it's time for a fireside chat. I've got an interesting story for you. So basically, this is a hunting story. Me and my buddy Warren, he was always a risk taker. And it seems that nobody's heard from him for years, but I have a lot of stories with this individual. His nickname was Hardcore Warren. I think when I describe the story and how he was, you'll understand what I mean. Let me tell you a little bit about his background. His dad was very strict, and I remember him telling me a story one time that he was out fishing, he was about 13, and his dad said, "Will you be back by noon? Or I'm just going to leave you." Now, of course, nobody in their right mind would do this kind of thing, but apparently he wasn't there in time, and that's what happened. He had to hike home over the mountains, and it took him all day. He was eating earthworms and just hiked over the mountains and made it back home safe and sound. He was hardcore for a reason. There's going to be other stories involving Warren as well. We were out hunting. We were quite a ways out in the bush. And he got his deer, and then time went on. Finally, just before evening, I ended up getting my deer as well. We both had a deer each. Now, what ended up happening is we weren't prepared in the sense that we didn't bring sleeping bags. We basically were just out for a day trip to try to get a couple of deer, which we did. But on the way back, we ended up running out of gas. It was his vehicle. And I guess he really didn't check the gas gauge properly.
Tanks ran out of gas, so we had to fight it out.
Problem was, we were way out in the middle of nowhere, and now we were out of gas. Now, it was a time of year where it was getting pretty cold. Like, it was -10, -12 at night. We didn't have bedding. So the first thing I thought of, and you've seen this in other videos, okay, try to find some hot rocks. We'll put them in the truck, stay warm that way because the vehicle doesn't run. There was a foot of snow on the ground at the time. Problem was, I wasn't really able to find any rocks. Even under the trees, I didn't really find any rocks, even though there wasn't really a lot of snow under some of the trees. So next thing, well, what about firewood? I didn't really see a lot of firewood in the area either. That was another problem. There was little branches on the trees, but not really anywhere to even have a fire in a foot of snow. This happens almost every fireside chat. Now the sun came out, the smoke's going the wrong way. I gotta readjust the camera again.
It's hard to readjust.
Okay, readjusted a bit. Smoke seems to be going the other way slightly now. The thing I didn't quite understand about my buddy Warren was he seemed to have all this bushcraft knowledge. And I remember asking him one time, like, where did you learn all these tricks? Survival, this, that. I said, you must have read a lot of books. Well, according to him, he didn't. You see how difficult it can be doing these fireside chats. I'm trying to finish my story, but I can't even see. Oh boy. Well, you gotta be kidding me. I had to move quite a ways away from the fire because it was just creating havoc, obviously. But anyway, yes, I could not understand where my buddy Warren got all his information and this and that. And he said, well, it's just all his years of hunting since he was 10 years old and starting fires in the bush. And he claims it was all hands-on knowledge. What are we going to do? So he suggested, well, I'll tell you what we should do. We're going to clean our deer and sleep inside them. I thought it was a great idea because I knew about it from reading survival books. But it's something I hadn't tried, so I was all game. Well, let's do that. So we both cleaned our deer out, gutted them out. We had snow to wash them down, and we did have rags because we were out hunting, so we had a bag of rags and towels, and we cleaned those deer right out. almost spotless. Not to mean they wouldn't bleed a little bit overnight. Then we both drug our deer underneath a tree where there wasn't a lot of snow and spent the night sleeping inside the carcass of the deer. Now, our feet were hanging out like a ways. You know, we left the skin on, the hide on these deer. And I'm telling you, it was warm. It's hard to believe, but when you do that survival trick, man alive, you're almost too hot. Like, it keeps you warm all night, even in 10, 15 below. Like, we had no issues there. That's an interesting trick to remember when you're out hunting. Maybe you get something, you get lost, or you can't get your way home. Remember that trick. I think they've shown it on other shows.
Down the bottom, make a little incision. Really sting.
Hang on, kid. I did know about this trick, and I was all keen to try it because I had never done that. But apparently he had done this before. So here we're talking about somebody that just learned things on his own and applied them and knew what to do in certain situations. And I've seen him with lots of other situations do something similar. And so it was just hard for me to believe that this person hadn't read survival books, or where do you get this? Just from hands-on is what he said. Like, I've been in situations, I know how to adapt, and that's what he did. And he was good at it. Hardcore Warren. I'm sure maybe there's some people that will remember the nickname and maybe even leave a comment. But anyway, so we did fine all night. Next morning he got up, grabbed a jerry can, which he did have. It should have had gas in it, but it was empty. We discovered that before we cleaned our deer. Oh, I got a jerry can of gas.
You didn't bring a spare jerry can?
Oh, no, Bert. I forgot a spare jerry can because I was rushing to save your...
No, there was no gas in the jerry can. So he started hiking down. Eventually somebody picked him up, even though we were way out on this back road. He did get a ride into town. And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 hours later, he showed up with a jerry can of gas, and we were able to get out, go to my place, clean our deer, and all ended well. You know, it's good to be a little more prepared than we were on that trip. You know, I kind of emphasize nowadays you should have blankets and maybe extra gas. I mean, in this case, all we would have needed was gas because we just ran out of gas. It's not like we had a mechanical breakdown. It's not like the motor went, the transmission went, and we were absolutely stranded because of a vehicle breakdown. It was just poor planning. Maybe look at the gas gauge, Warren. But anyway, I thought you'd find that interesting because, you know, that trick worked very well. I would have preferred probably to use the hot rocks in the truck like I've shown in other videos. But at the same time, I had never tried that trick and it worked well. So keep that in mind. And I'll see you on the next Fireside chat. So I guess the moral of the story is hands-on experience is better than maybe reading the books. You can learn a lot from the books, but hands-on is probably the best teacher. Right on.